Welcome to Now and Forever, a series of 10-minute reflections on good news spirituality, sponsored by the Charles and Catherine Freed Family Foundation, headquartered in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and brought to you from Our Lady of Sacred Heart Parish here in Watertown, New York. Again, we have Vicki Phillips,
Hi,
choir
Father.
member. Hi, Vicki. And Pat Henry, choir member, and the head of the confirmation program for young people. So we talked about strategic thinking and operational planning, or operational management planning and operational planning. And now we're going to go into an understanding of what Vatican II is all about in terms of a big word, evangelization. And a lot of people used to object to this word and say, that's too long or complicated for various other reasons. So we're going to start with this, and Vicki's going to lead us off by reading this first paragraph.
I never hear anyone complain about people using D-Day to refer to the Normandy invasion on June 6, 1944. That apt term sums up what has since filled volumes with pictures and words. The defining moment in the battle to liberate Europe from Nazi control. A day of destiny, an event of epic proportions, a decisive stroke that took months to plan in view of its formidable logistics and closely guarded hopes for a strategic advantage based on surprise. It was a bold venture that in the end depended on elements as uncertain as the weather and as magnificent as the heroic bravery of the soldiers who stormed the beaches and gave the Allies a foothold on the continent.
Very good. See, now that's really, that word D-Day, you know, that's Day of Destiny, that really summed the whole thing up. And now you can't, I mean, like what it says here, he says, nobody complains about using D-Day. You need a way to talk about it, sum up something. Pat, read that next sentence and we'll talk about it.
Was D-Day, was D-Day only referred to that?
Yes.
Time, only that time.
That Day of Destiny, that specific day when they invaded Russia at the beach of Normandy.
It would be hard to substitute another word for D-Day. The expression holds an immense amount of factual context and is loaded with symbolic meanings. But what about the word now coming into a more common usage, evangelization? Isn't there some other noun in the English language that we could use in its place?
See, that's where people, trying to understand Vatican II, and if you said what's about evangelization, well, people, that didn't tell them anything, because they didn't know what evangelization was. And the other problem that I saw, or see looking back at it, was that evangelization is really about bringing culture values, Christian values or gospel values, into the culture of the time. That's the way you evangelize, because culture, which I think we talked about a bit, is created by a plurality. People coming together, sharing values and truths and goals and such principles, and it needs a place to happen. You can't have culture, and that's one of our problems today. We don't really have a culture because they don't have any place where people don't even eat the meals together, you know? But here, what we were talking about here with this word evangelization, not only did people didn't know what that was, they didn't know what evangelization was in terms of transforming the culture and cultures of the world, which is what Paul VI clearly says in Evangelii Nuntiandi. It's an apostolic exhortation on evangelization in the modern world. And what he's really saying is that this really consists of bringing gospel values into the culture and cultures of our time, to transform that culture by bringing Christian values into it. So now, so what this word, what do you got here? Oh, it says, here we go. There are other ways of saying that we were made by God and eventually we'll go either to heaven or to hell. But that doesn't give us much to work on. I know, I see where you're going. The word evangelization presents life's proposition in its totality. Do we accept the gospel, the good news of God's love, or do we not? And according to Pope Paul VI, the proof that we ourselves have been evangelized will be our readiness to share the gospel with others. Therein we find our true measure of faith, hope, and love, sharing the good news with others. Now, when we're talking about good news spirituality, This is what that paragraph there really says is what it is do we really accept God's love? Do we accept the gospel, the good news of God's love, or do we not? And Chevalier, on a lot of this stuff, will, on this thing, will talk about Chevalier. His foundational statement, it went like this, more or less. If people, or the greatest necessity for people, in order for them to find meaning and happiness on earth, in other words, the greatest need they have to find meaning and happiness on earth, is to learn to believe in God's love for them. Can you imagine? That's what you got to do. Learn to believe in God's love for you, and allow that love to transform your life. That sums it up perfectly. It's not that you're gonna, go to heaven or hell, or that you're gonna, this is what you got to do or don't do. No, it sets the whole proposition up in terms of its totality. That what we have to do is learn to believe in God's love for us.
But that takes, like, anything, that takes trust, that takes belief, it takes more than just saying it, and,
That's right.
There's more that goes with it.
Exactly, but that's why it really means bringing your faith into a life. That's what it means. Mm-hmm. You accept God's love, not in your head, but in your heart, and in all you are and all you do. That's what we talked about spirituality, that this is really the why of our life. And when we talk about here about evangelization, most especially, that means you accept God's love. That's the good news. And Chevalier, he says, in saying that, learn to believe in God's love. I think later on this stuff will probably go there in one of the other texts. But what he did was he believed in God's providence, the providence of God. He believed that not a hair from your head, Pat, fell off that God didn't know. Can you imagine? He knows everything.
Well, he was a busy man with me then.
Yeah, he paid a lot of attention to you. But here, now, once you understand that God knows even the slightest thing in your life, and then you start understanding, oh yeah, God's providence is here. Just as it was in the Old Testament, the New Testament, in the world today, and we'll get into that, but even in our individual lives. And that's how Chevalier believed in the providence of God so much that he just knew whether he had difficulties or whatever, he knew even if the worst difficulty was just another way in God, proving I can help you and keep going. And he was amazing.
This brings up, is it predestination?
That's correct.
Or is it the providence of God?
Now, but here you come into that predestination thing. There you got to go back to Frank Shee, where he points up the fact that you have to know grace as well as free will, conscience, and spirit. If you don't know what a spirit is, you're done.
Right.
But you have to know what grace is, how grace operates, and free will. And then you have to understand what conscience is. See, conscience, you learned what conscience was. You say, I did something right or wrong. But conscience actually comes from conscientia, which means to know together. So when you examine your conscience, you're not just examining what you as an individual did, but what you did in context of your relationships to others in society as a whole. And that's the way you got to do conscience. But that's part of how you understand that it's not divine, it's not faith. And it's really, maybe briefly I could just mention this. See, you can't say, Jesus, I love you, without grace. You just can't do that, or Jesus is the Lord. And you can't say that and mean it without grace. However, when you say it, you become, by grace, by saying it, you become a person loving the Lord. And that's where, now, even after you become a person loving the Lord, you can still say no. You have the freedom to
You have a right to say that.
Yes. And see, that's where grace comes. That's where you really understand. When they ask the question, are you saved by works or grace? That's a dumb question. It's like asking, can you breathe without air? Because you can't have, if you don't have faith, you got to have works if you got faith. Otherwise, you don't have faith. And if you don't have air, you can't breathe. So it's like, the last judgment is not about, did you believe? It's, I was hungry and you gave me something to eat, I was thirsty. Now that sounds like works, doesn't it? But you have to do that for Jesus, whatever you do. to the least of my brethren. That's what you do to me. So there you see the whole thing coming into focus. That is, you're not saved by faith or works. You're saved by an acceptance of God's love, and time is up. Okay, good being with you, folks. I hope you get something out of this. Take care and God bless. Bye.